be most weeks. I'm not sure what most of your classes have. I've been working at this where we go about an hour and a half, sometimes a little less, sometimes a little more, where we do this kind of the Zoom contact. So we get a chance to do some teaching rather than just having everything be, videos and what have you that you can see on the computer. And I also find it helps a lot as far as just moving through the class that we have a better sense of being together if we do that. So so I'll be watching the clock, but not for this part. I'll be watching it later when I'm saying, yeah, it's about time. But I wanted to give you guys a chance to just kind of know what the expectation was going to be, so you have a chance to order your, just emotionally kind of gear up what Tuesday nights are going to be like. So, Andrea, go.
Okay, so when I was looking for a good devotional for today, I wanted to do something regarding encouragement, since we're going into a new class. So I found something that I thought was appropriate. So I'm going to read it now. Let's see. Let's see. We all struggle with spiritual disencouragement and lethargy. Some days our circumstances threaten to overwhelm us and we struggle just to pray. Many times we just don't feel like things we know. We just don't feel like doing things we know we should. For one reason or another, God sometimes seems far off and unreachable. David faced times like these in his life. The Psalms are filled with the verses that express his despair and feeling of abandonment. Yet the Psalms also give us the key to living vigorously during the dark periods of our life. Let's take a quick look at Psalms 119, 89 to 95. Forever, O Lord, the word is settled in heaven. Your faithfulness continues throughout all generations. You establish the earth and it stands. They stand. Let's see. I'm having a hard time. They stand this day according to your ordinances. Many circumstances and feelings have not changed God. He is the same God today as, I'm having a hard time. Give me a second, guys. I'm having a hard time reading. Let's see. Right, circumstance. Let's see. He is the same God today as he was when he hung the stars in the sky, led the Israelites through the Red Sea, and fed the 5,000. Sorry. My computer is being weird, guys. Sorry. Basically what I got from this was that, on our worst day, that God is with us, and in praying to him, he makes all things possible. So the encouragement that I got from this was great. There's more to it. I'm having issues with my computer though, so I apologize.
Oh, thank you, Andrea. And it's a good place to turn. That's actually, you can look at the book of Psalms. It's a great place to go for devotional time, and it does bring encouragement to us. And actually, we'll spend one of the weeks that we'll be getting, hopefully we'll get a good chance to look at the Psalms as part of an overview of the Bible, because the Psalms do play a very unique and a very important piece in the biblical record, what it's there for. And so we'll get a chance to look at that and talk about it later on as well. So thank you. It's a great place for us to get started. Okay. Well, welcome to Bib 439, and really glad to get a chance to get to know you guys and to do this class. In a way, I've been teaching this class for, like I said, 5 or 6 years now, but in a way, this is my first go at it as well. There's gonna be parts of this class that I've never taught before. There's a couple of books that we're going to be looking at that I've never worked through. In fact, I'm working just maybe a half step ahead of you right now, because I've never done a class that was for a cohort as good as yours. How's that, right? Never had a class that I've done for a cohort that was for social work, because that's a new major here at the Merced campus. And so this is kind of a new thing for me. And so while the class is going to feel familiar to me, there are parts of it that are going to be new to me, and I'm excited to get that a little bit of freshness here too. So real quick, how we'll work this is every Monday, I'll open up the new Moodle for that week. And I sometimes do it on Sunday, but I guarantee by Monday we'll have it open. And then the general progression of the week would be this. If you want to get started on Monday, you can. Please go ahead and get a jump on it. That way, if you see anything you have questions about, it's easy to ask when we get together on Tuesday night. And then you have the rest of the week. If we have a forum that gives you a prompt that we ask you to respond to and have someone else respond to what you've said, we ask your initial prompt to be put up by Friday. So that's something to look ahead each week and say, is there a forum here? I don't want to put that off to the weekend because maybe you're doing most of your work on the weekend. But you want to make sure to have your forum posted by Friday. So you get your score for it, and others in the class then when they respond have a chance to see what you've posted. Because everything else, all the other assignments that we have, whether it be the reading assignments, the response assignments, any writing assignments we have, will all be due then on Sunday night. And I've tried the online where we have like different due dates throughout the week, and I find it becomes complicated. There was a good part to that, and not everything came at the same time. But not everyone's schedule is the same. And so I found that by just saying Sunday night, it's on you, figure out when you best work, if it's through the night or into the weekend, however it is that you want to accomplish the tasks of that week. As long as they're done by Sunday night, we're good. So again, the forums would be due on Friday, and then any responses to the forums. So when you say, for example, Terry wants to respond to what Dawn posted on Friday, Terry, you've got until Sunday to do that. And so that by Sunday night, we're all wrapped up and ready to move on to the next week. So that's kind of how the flow of the class will go. And again, we'll spend time each class period talking about issues that we need prayer for, and then moving into at least one of the main topics of that week. Generally, we'll do a little bit of an overview, but then also do a little bit of time, probably doing a little bit of Bible teaching. So if you have access to the books, the big red Bible, the New Oxford Annotated Bible, that's what we'll be working out of. So let me see. So books, that's a good place for jumping off here. That big red Bible I was referring to is this one. Is it familiar to you? Y'all have this book? Okay. And I guess this would be my next question. I'll ask it right now. Have you already had the Bib 314 class, the Jesus and the Christian Community class? I see most of them are nodding their heads. Good. Okay. Well, that's helpful because you've probably already got this Bible and are a little bit familiar with it. A little familiar with some of this specific version. And again, that's one of the things that often confuses people because there are so many, especially in our English language, so many different versions of the Bible that raises questions just in itself. But we'll talk more about that. And you'll see in one of our books, the book called Fee and Stewart, there's a real good chapter talks about some of the differences and why the differences are there. Someone always asks me, well, if there's so many versions, how do I know which one's the right one? And the simple answer for that is really that they're all good. They approach interpretation in a little different way. And so they have a little different variations for us trying to understand to bring these ancient texts. Some of the parts of this Bible are probably nearly 4,000 years old. And to bring them out of their culture, out of that language, and bring it into a present day culture that we live in a language that we can understand, can be a little bit challenging. So we have a lot of different versions. We use the NRSV, the New Revised Standard Version, for the class. And there's reasons why that's done. Everyone who goes to FPU, that's the version that they use, not because FPU has any real stake in it, but it just gives us all common ground to work with. Maybe you have a different Bible that you like to read, whether it be on your phone or on, you have your Bible at your home with you, and maybe it's not the NRSV. Don't worry, it's just gonna have a little different feel, a little different sound. And again, as you read through chapter 1 in Fee and Stewart, you'll see why that is. So if you don't have the Red Bible or don't have access to it on a given night when we're doing our class, if you can at least try to find a NRSV Bible to use, or on your Bible app on your phone, if you want to just type in NRSV, and that way when you're reading, if we're reading something together, we're reading the very same words instead of reading. Sometimes some versions read it a little differently and it can be a little confusing. Oh, that was that verse. It didn't sound at all like what I have in my Bible. But we'll talk about that a little bit more as we go on. Other than that, this will be one of the new books that you have. It is called Generous Justice by Tim Keller. And I've just got started reading it myself about a week ago. I'm about halfway through, and it's I think it's really engaging, and it's very appropriate for the times that we live in. I've read some other books by Tim Keller in the past, and I really enjoy his writing. So I'm not surprised I'm enjoying this book as well. And then there's a book that we have to read via online, and I think on our class. Let me see. Yeah, there's the link there at the top of your Moodle where you can go to purchase the ebook, and that's an important part of the class too, though we didn't get into it much this week, but we will, and it'll be a key piece of the material. So once you get that ebook downloaded, the nice part is you don't have to wait for that. It just pops right in, and you're good to go. The other books that we have, and I'll just touch on these two. These are books that you should have had from the previous course then. This book, The Upside Down Kingdom by Don Craybill. And if you had 314, you became very familiar with this book. It's a great book, but it's used primarily in the 314. You will use it or refer to it a time or two. It may play into some of how you respond to things later on, but not a lot of reading out of this book this go round. This is going to be kind of the least read book of the bunch. And then again, from 314, this book, which I think you're probably familiar with now, How to Read the Bible for All It's Worth by Fee and Stewart. And this is I think really is it's a brilliant book. I really enjoy it, and I think it helps us get a better handle on really what's going on with the Bible. That's why this week you'll see there are 2 chapters to read. The first one has to do with that question I raised a little earlier about about interpretation, but also some of the areas of translation. So the translation in chapter 2 addresses some of those issues, like which one might be best for me, or why are there so many different ones? But that issue of that first chapter, now I just encourage you to take a look at it, because that's kind of the key jumping off place for us here in this class. Is you've already gotten a little bit of that instruction about when we talk about the 3 worlds model of the biblical interpretation, where we look at the historical world, the literary world, as well as the contemporary world. As you're reading through chapter 1, and if you haven't read chapter 1 yet, I'll just kind of point it out to you, that Fee and Stewart deal with the same model. They just use different language for it. So I just want you not to be confused by it. You'll see, if you have the book close at hand, I would point out, just so you see what I'm looking at, on page 27, there is in the midst of chapter 1. Fee and Stewart talk about the challenge of all of us. How do we understand and interpret the Bible for ourselves? And that becomes a challenge for anyone who wants to read it, because again, to think that we can just read it and understand it without looking to try to interpret it for ourselves is a little foolish. So on page 27 at the bottom, it says the first task. And then it has a funny word there. Maybe you've never said this word or spoken this word, but the word is exegesis. And I point that out because that'll be part of your potentially a vocabulary word on our vocabulary quiz before the class is over. But also because what exegesis is, it is basically doing the historical task. So if you understand the three worlds model and you understand a little bit about this, the historical world, this is going to be where we see both the historical world as well as the literary world, where we kind of dive into what's actually being said and understand the context out of which it comes, to where we can begin to understand what the original author was trying to say. And then once we know what that message is that they're trying to say in its original, then we can move it forward towards what we call the contemporary world, or what is said here in Fee and Stewart again. Now this is on page 33, where at the bottom, where in the middle it says the second task. So the first task of exegesis incorporates what we've already been told as the historical world and the literary world. The second task, and there's another fun word here. This one's called hermeneutics. And I don't know why they come up with these funny words that sound weird and we never talk about if we speak English. But here it is. This word is called hermeneutics. And the best translation for that is, if you understand what the contemporary world is, that's exactly what hermeneutics in this phrase, in this way is. It is, once you know what the message was, how do we then apply it to our present day? And that's the task of hermeneutics. So as you read through Fee and Stewart, both in chapter 1, you'll get a better feel or a little reminder about that three worlds model that still becomes our kind of our driving principle as we look at the Bible, so that we get a chance to break down the Bible in ways that we better understand. And so for this class, what we will do is we'll do kind of an overview of the entire Bible, and then pick out various pieces as we go through to better understand how the Bible came together, and how we can interpret it. Fee and Stewart will be really good at helping us understand that, because we'll be looking at a number of different types of literary material. In the last class, we dealt mostly with the Gospel of Matthew, and that's a specific type of literary genre. But in this class, we'll look at the Bible in a lot of different ways, where there's going to be aspects of poetry. We'll look at pieces of narrative. We'll be looking at law and law codes and things like that. How do we understand that in our present day? We'll be looking at wisdom literature and different forms of wisdom literature. And all these different forms or genres have different rules for interpretation. And so we'll talk about that and we'll see where they are. And I really believe, because I've seen it happen over and over again, after the 6 weeks of being together, just having a little better feel for how the Bible is fit together and how then we interpret it makes the Bible a whole lot easier to begin to handle. So, Fee and Stewart, again, I know that's one of our assignments, is those two chapters, but again, pay a special attention to that second half of chapter 1, and then as you want, you can breeze a little more quickly through chapter 2. Because it's not as imperative to the class. It's just good information to know. How come the Bible comes out sounding so different in different versions? So that being said, I'm going to need to ask you guys a question, a little bit about your Bible experience. So, in fact, let me do this. Can I do a share screen here? I'm going to ask a question. I'm going to put it up, but then I want to pull it back because I want to be able to see you as you answer it. Everyone's going to get a chance to answer a couple of these questions. Where is my from current slide? There it is. There we go. So I would like just to hear you tell me, what is your experience? And you'll see this, one of the assignments this week, we'll touch on this again, but I'd like just to hear you guys kind of walk me through how familiar you are with the Bible, and that will help me better understand how really to approach even the teaching of it. So what is your experience with the Bible? Can you see the screen, by the way? Okay. What is your experience with the Bible? And And maybe part 2 is, in what context have you studied it? Okay, so let's just go with those questions for now. Who would like to answer those questions first? But I'd like to hear from everybody, so feel free to take your time getting around. Go ahead.
I have very little to no experience with the Bible. My dad used to be a pastor when I was younger in Hollister, but I don't ever recall reading the Bible. I memorized the first couple lines of Genesis, and then that was it. But for the most part, even the Bib class of 314, I was in it, and some things came up, and I didn't want to ruin my GPA, so I had to withdraw from that one. So I'm a little bit behind even on that.
Okay. Well, Robin, thank you for letting me know that. I won't assume then that everyone knows some of the stuff that you would have learned in 314, especially something like the 3 worlds model. That may be a new concept to you. And I don't want to just jump over and have you kind of like, what's he talking about? I don't even know. So that's good to know. And welcome. This is going to be a fantastic class for you then, because this is a good place to start.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Good. All right, anybody else who would like to go next? Go ahead, Don.
So I have been studying the Bible for about 10 years.
Wow.
I was called to teach probably around 7 years ago. Ran for about 2 of it. And so I teach a lot of Bible studies. I've preached a few times at my church, but it's mostly Bible studies that I do. And since I started school last January, I've spent more time in schoolwork than I have in the Word.
Yeah, yeah. Well, this will be an interesting kind of a blend for you. You'll get a chance to get a little bit more back into the Word, even as you're doing your schoolwork. So
yeah, I've been looking forward to this class.
Yeah, good. What church do you go to, Don?
Chowchilla Family Worship Center.
Fantastic. Okay. Okay, good. Somebody else. Experience. What has been your experience with the Bible so far?
I go.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm more like Robin. I did not get familiar or not know much about the Bible. I take the class of 314, but I got a very bad grade on that. We touch on a little bit about the Matthew part of it. That's all I know a little bit. Like I said, just surface or really no clue on the Bible. So it will be very interesting for me to learn as well. Looking forward to it.
Okay, good. I'm looking forward to it as well, Pia. Yeah, this is a very different class from Bib 13, but there are some similarities in the plan, the way we want to teach you to interpret for yourself the Bible. But the flow is going to be very different, whereas that one was mostly in the Gospel of Matthew. We're taking a much wider view, but of course, when you do that, you don't dig quite as deeply either. So, right. So yeah, so good. Okay, well, we'll look forward to it. And maybe we'll have Robin quote those first few verses of Genesis tonight, just for kicks, because
it's a couple lines. It's not even a couple verses.
Okay, fair enough. In the beginning, right?
Yeah,
that's how it starts. There you go.
The heavens.
Okay. Okay, good. Okay, thank you, Pia. Andrea, are you raising your hand, or are you? Oh,
I wasn't raising my hand, but I can
okay.
talk. So I also took the Bib class. I took it with Pia and I took it with Robin. It was very challenging for me because my background of the Bible was not great. I've said many times the majority of my my background of the Bible and my this cohort in general has I think brought me more knowledge of the Bible and faith and wanting to connect more with my faith than I had in the past. So I took the Bib class. I did okay. I didn't do as well as I would have liked to, but I passed it and I'm done. I don't have to take it again. So I'm happy about that.
Yes.
My teacher just taught it as it was the teaching, I think of it, I think maybe if I would have had a different teacher, I would have done a little better. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah.
But his structure and the way he taught was very challenging. So I have a small foundation, I would say, but not enough where I feel confident in my knowledge. So I'm looking forward to this class.
Good. Can I ask what you did it online? I'm assuming, being most everything in the last year has been online.
Yeah. I don't like to throw out names because
No,
my
I'm
teachers.
I'm not going to ask that. So, but,
yeah, it was not the teacher. I can tell you that it's not the teacher that John or Terry had, because
Okay.
it was just his teaching style. I think more than anything, he was very structured, which is fine. It's just not the way that I think we've been used to being taught. Like, we've been taught with we've been able to ask questions and had an open forum with our teachers, and he was very not that way. So that was challenging. So that being said, I like I said, I passed the class and I'm very thankful for that.
Good. Well, I think you'll be happy. I think this class you'll find to be different from that. I'm not sure who it is who did the teaching, but I don't think I've ever been accused of being structured. So
structure is a good thing. It's just the way
it
I
is.
think the way it comes across.
Yeah.
I don't know, if you're too structured, it makes it a little challenging, especially when people, like most of the people I think that are in most of these programs are working students. So that makes it really challenging. And so to not take that into account as far as like time and so forth, it's hard. So
yeah. Good. Okay. Well, I'll try to keep that in mind as well.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Good. All right. Who is next? Thank you, Andrea. Okay, Shauna.
So I started going to church by myself as an adult, I guess, when I was probably like 7 years ago. I started going to New Life Christian Center in Turlock.
Great church.
Yeah, I went to a couple in Merced and they were fine, but I really liked Pastor Dave and connected with the way that he shared the message. So I a little bit stopped going for a while, and now I just do it, virtually because of what's going on. But as far as like my experience with reading the Bible, I've read a lot of it, but there's so much in there that when I go back, sometimes I'm like, oh, I didn't realize that before, or I missed that. So, I am not super familiar, I wouldn't say, but I do have, some familiarity with it.
So if Robin was to start quoting Genesis 1, you would probably recognize it as Genesis 1, right?
Very likely.
Yeah, good. Okay, good. All right.
I would not.
Okay, fair enough, Andrea. You will after tonight, okay? You will after tonight. We'll be good. Okay, Terry, how about you?
Probably about the time I started going to the church, Michael was in kindergarten, so what?
Yeah, and he's 19 now?
Yeah, 15 years ago.
Yeah.
And I started right away doing Bible studies.
Yeah.
So lots of Bible studies over the years.
Yeah, you've had some good leaders too. You've had some good groups, some really good facilitators. I know, Terry. So yeah, you've been in a good place. So very good. Okay, well, that's kind of the neat thing. I think as we jump in, because that's one of the challenges that often we have with the Bible is that we get into a place and maybe we're a little hesitant to maybe even open up because we feel like, well, gosh, so-and-so may know more. There's Dawn, she's taught this stuff before, or there's Terry, she's been taking, in Bible studies with, great teachers. Yeah, great teachers. You've had great teachers. I know some of the people you've had, and how intimidating that can be. But I really want all of us to just go ahead and just kind of put that aside. And if there are people in the group with a little bit more experience, that's good, because that helps us stay on track. But as we look at it, I really want to look at it as close as we can with fresh eyes. So those of you who have less experience are going to be able to do that even easier. Certainly easier than I will, because I come to a lot of these passages or things with a lot of baggage. I've read it before. I think I know what it's about. And maybe I don't read it with expectation, because I think I already know what's there. And yet with someone who is not as experienced, there's a perspective that you bring to the rest of the group that can be really, really positive, especially if there's people within the group who have some experience. It's kind of nice. It's a good blend. And so all of our voices are necessary. So someone like Pia, don't hesitate and say, I could say something, I think this, but I'm probably wrong, so I won't. Please don't do that. Throw it out there. I'll be happy to tell you you're wrong. You know, I'm kidding. I really don't want to do that. But would love to hear, again, the fresh eyes sometimes raise up interesting questions and raise up new perspectives that sometimes I think the Bible contains, but we, after being in it for a while, we can sometimes, it can begin to get a little flat for us. And so sometimes the freshness is exactly what we need, which has been part of my joy in teaching classes like this, because quite frankly, there's always a nice blend of different experience levels in the different cohorts. So that is it's really a cool thing. So so please, yeah, let's this is really good. Okay, so my next question, and we'll just do this one real quick around as well. When you think about the Bible, and maybe just give me one or two or three. I think you'll see it in an assignment, maybe they ask you for 5 different words, just kind of a random association. When you think of the Bible, what are a couple of words that pop into mind for you? And let's go ahead and I'm not going to try to do the pattern the way we had it, because I would probably forget. I think we started with Robin last time, but we can start with anyone this time. Robin's fine, or somebody else. Just as you think of, what are a couple of words, 2 or 3, that when you think of the Bible, those are the words that pop up?
Mercy, grace, and love.
Okay, so Dawn, let's start with you.
Mercy, grace, and love.
Mercy, grace, and love. Okay. Now, if those were your 3, you can still say them. Just because Dawn used them doesn't mean they have to scratch them off the list. Okay, but also you don't have to pick the same ones that Dawn did. I'm looking for different words. So mercy, grace, and love.
The 3 words that came to my mind were God, holiness, and peace.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Robin.
Mine was also God, safe haven, and comfort.
Safe haven, neat. Okay.
Mine was love, hope, and peace.
Love, hope, and peace. Okay.
Mine would be kindness, love, and God.
Good. All right. A couple more. Pia, how about you?
Mine is having faith and honesty.
Okay, faith and honesty. All right, those are some great words. As we, and again, you just in hearing the words that you guys shared, that even goes to what we're expecting or what we're hoping to find as we approach the Bible. I'm really glad that those are, I want to say we consistently, it's 100% of the words are positive words. You'd be surprised, sometimes I do a cohort and I start getting some words that it can be a little discouraging. You know, sometimes you hear words that have negative connotation, judgmental, or shame. Sometimes you get words that are just, coming out of a real place of honesty, intimidating or confusing. Those kinds of words sometimes pop up when people just try to free associate when they hear the word the Bible. Sometimes people, have a negative connotation, old, ancient, irrelevant. And so sometimes I hear words like that, and I'm always happy to engage, especially in those kinds of those places as well. But I'm glad to say that you guys just got 100% on that of positive words. So that's a good thing. I can tell that you guys are then expecting this to be a great class, and it will be. So good. Okay. Again, that just helps me kind of get my bearing straight as we get ready to move into this this class. So real quick, what I want to do is look at the overview of the Moodle for week 1. And I think I can do that by sharing screen again. Again, you guys will find out that I am really not too hip with the technology stuff. So I'm trying really hard, and it's here somewhere. I know it is. Oh, there it is. That's not the one I wanted. This is the one I wanted. Yes, okay. Okay, so you'll see yours looks a little different than mine. So if you're looking at yours, you don't have to look at my screen, but I just want to walk it through. Again, at the top of the page, basic information, introduction to the class and to the university. Got the syllabus here at the top. And I did some adjusting on the syllabus, and we'll do adjusting as we go forward as well. But that's where our starting point. And I did make a couple of changes to try to get some of the dates more appropriate for due dates and things like that, because the syllabus we had originally was not up to date. So for this week 1, if you haven't yet had a chance, there's me doing my thing right here in front of my fireplace, and getting the first 5 minutes, kind of a little introduction to where we're going to be going, talking about in the beginning. And of course, Robin knows exactly where that phrase comes from. Where's that from, Robin?
From Genesis.
Oh yes, Genesis 1:1. See, you're my new Bible scholar. You go, girl. And then we have our reading, and then we have a number of the opportunities we'll have. We have our Zoom class here tonight. You already know about that. I will post each week. Tell me if this is unnecessary. I have been making a habit of posting the Zoom session online here on the Moodle the day after our class together. So if you miss something, or you want to go back and watch it again or catch part of it, that is available to you. I started doing that at the beginning of the pandemic, when it was not required to do the Zoom check-in, but now it is required to do the Zoom check-in. So, but I still post it. And if after a week or two you say no one's watching it, please tell me. I just won't waste our time putting it up. But it's nice there in case if you can't make it to a class, you can kind of watch and at least get that much of the instruction and not feel you've been left out. Okay, then for the rest of this week, there's a number of things. The reading that we have to do, there's a number of videos. We have this one Burger King mom, and then a couple of videos that come out of the Bible Project. If you've not seen these are really good. And then a couple of forums that will come out of that. So once you've watched the videos, do those forums. Again, watch the videos, post your initial forum post by Friday so that you can respond to somebody over the weekend on each of those posts. And then we'll be able to move forward. Then there's a few other different assignments, not forums, and these are all due on Sunday. Again, this one in the beginning, and here down, I jumped down a little bit here. I took some things out, but in the beginning is here. 1.3 is in the beginning. It's a short video by a professor, Sandra Richter, and then a little bit of just interaction with her. Then there's a couple more opportunities here. 1.4, issues of interpretation. That's going to be a kind of a fun experiment, talking about contexts and how things begin to fit together. So go ahead and read that. You'll have to interact with somebody via either on the phone or an email to make that one happen. But it's a good exercise for us, not especially biblical yet. Methodology is going to get us into a little bit more about our 3 worlds and how it goes. So again, we have assignments, you just post them in there. And then there's one more, and this comes out of our Keller book, talking about in one of the chapters that is required this week, talking about what does it mean for us to think about other people as being in the image of God? What does it mean for us to consider ourselves as being in the image of God? And we'll talk a little bit more about that, because that too, Robin, comes out of Genesis 1. So so that kind of becomes the main focus of our class. And then finally, there's a form at the end of the week, kind of to wrap up everything. So have a look at that. So it's not a real heavy week, but there is a good bit of reading. So and kind of judge this and kind of walk it along with me. Tell me how it's going, because we don't want to overwhelm you, but there is a lot of material to cover in the course of these 6 weeks. So I'm going to try to do my best to make it workable for you. Where you're reading things, you'll notice up in the getting started, when you read through Genesis 1 through 3, that's easy. But when you try to tackle 12 through 50, that's a lot of material. I'm going to encourage you at that point to do some active skimming here, okay? Don't try to read it deep, try to get all the details. I don't want you to do that. You'll spend all week on it. But just so you get a feel for the storyline, what kind of what's going, who are the main characters, that kind of thing, rather than looking at just specifics. So this week, our Bible material is really invite you to do a good bit of skimming, just so you get a feel for it as we get ready to get started. Okay. And then finally this, because we are going to be taking a look at the book of Genesis. This is the place where the Bible begins. We're going to open up our Bibles tonight. I want to do a little reading together. We're going to go into Robin's favorite book, favorite chapter, Genesis 1:1. I'm going to have too much fun with you, Robin. I'm sorry if I do that to you.
No, it's fine. My dad, when he was a pastor, so it was like, okay, let's read the Bible is something I really wanted to do. And after a couple of times trying to memorize that first verse, I was just like, oh, that's enough.
Yeah. I can see that I would probably feel like I was going to be a failure too, if that's how I started, quite honestly. I think that'd be a rough go.
Hey, John.
Yeah.
Hey, I just want to let you know that on our syllabus, it says that Genesis is 12 through 25, not 12 through 50.
Oh.
I've already done all this reading.
And the syllabus says 12 through 25?
Yeah, and that's all I did was read through 12 through 25 after 1 through 3.
Thank you for pointing that out. I did not see, that's one of those places I have never been probably accused of being organized or structured or catching details. So yeah, I assumed, being I got these from the same place, that they would be lined up, and they're not. So that's good to know.
Yeah.
Let's call that 12 to 25, because let's go with what that is. And we'll touch on it. We'll wrap up a little bit next week. We'll kind of do an overview of Genesis to catch it up for those who don't get a chance. And I don't blame them for cutting it in half, just because it is so much material. It is hard to get it going. But in Genesis 1, and we'll go ahead and do parts of Genesis 1 and hopefully parts of Genesis 2 tonight together, just to talk about a little bit. And that'll be a good start. If you want to read it this week, great. Or if you want to just call this good for your reading, that's fine too. But we want to take a look at this part, especially here in Genesis 1, because this is the creation narrative, and this is where it all begins. Hence the words in the beginning, when God created the heavens and the earth. Oh, let me I gotta get this turned into the right. See, I've got it here on my thing. I want to go get the New Revised Standard, because that's what we're using here. New Revised Standard. Bang. Okay. So here we have the story of creation. The first of really two stories of creation that we have in the Bible. The first is in Genesis 1. The second is in Genesis 2. And I say two stories of creation because they are, they don't really flow neatly one to the other, but they do present the creation with a couple of different perspectives, which can be a beautiful thing for some, and it can be troubling for others, why they don't match up a little bit better. I think there's a good reason for that. I think I could probably tell you what the good reason was, but before we jump into reasons, let's just go ahead and read them and see how it feels to you. So as we read through Genesis 1, I want you to simply listen for how this seems to go. Who are the main characters here? Well, the main character is going to be God. But so how is God depicted in this opening chapter as we read it? What are we hearing? What is being said about God and about all that is here around us that we see in the creation story? As we look then at chapter 2, we'll see it kind of has a little different feel. but let's just go ahead and listen to it. Then I'll ask you a couple of questions. I'll need a couple of readers, maybe 3 to get us through this chapter. So the first volunteer, if you could read through, say, verses 1 through, say, the first 2 days, just verses 1 through 8. And then the second reader would read on from verse 9, say through verse 19. Get us up to day 3 and day 4. And then someone to pick up at verse 20 and take us to the end of the chapter, which is basically going to get us to the rest of the creation story. So who would be my first reader, 1 through 9?
It seems fitting, John, that I'd be the.
I think it's you, Robin. Yes, absolutely.
I think this one's calling me here. So.
Yes. Okay, so we scroll back up. If you want to read it off the screen, you can.
Sure,
or if you
yeah.
have your Bible. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay. 6th day of creation and the Sabbath. 1. In the beginning, when God created the heavens and the earth was formless, void, and darkness covered the face of the deep, while a wind from God swept over the face of the waters. Then God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. And God saw that the light was good, and God separated the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And there was evening, and there was morning, the first day. And God said, "Let there be a dome in the midst of the waters, and let it separate the waters from the waters." So God made the dome and separated the waters that were under the dome from the waters that were above the dome. And it was so. God called the dome sky, and there was evening, and there was morning, the second day.
Very good. Thank you, Robin. Okay, someone 9 through 19.
I'll read it.
Okay, Terry.
Okay. And God said, "Let the waters under the sky be gathered together into one place. Let the dry land appear." And it was so. God called the dry land earth, and the waters that were gathered together he called seas. And God saw that it was good. And God said, "Let the earth put forth vegetation, plants yielding seed, and fruit trees of every kind on earth that bear fruit with the seed in it." And it was so. The earth brought forth vegetation, plants yielding seeds of every kind, and trees of every kind bearing fruit with the seed in it. And God saw that it was good. And there was evening, and there was morning, the third day. And God said, "Let there be lights in the dome of the sky to separate the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and years. And let them be lights in the dome of the sky to give light upon the earth." And it was so. God made the 2 great lights, the greater light to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night, and the stars. God set them in the dome of the sky to give light upon the earth, to rule over the day and over the night, and to separate the light from the darkness. And God saw that it was good. And there was evening, and there was morning, the 4th day.
Good. Okay. Who would be my third reader? Again, pick us up here at verse 20, and we'll go on down to the end of the first creation story.
And God said, "Let the waters bring forth swarms of living creatures, and let birds fly above the earth across the dome of the sky." So God created the great sea monsters and every living creature that moves of every kind with which the waters warm, and every winged bird of every kind. And God saw that it was good. God blessed them, saying, "Be fruitful and multiply, and fill the waters of the seas, and let the birds multiply on earth." And there was evening, and there was morning, the 5th day. And God said, "Let the earth bring forth living creatures of every kind, cattle, creeping things, wild animals, of the earth of every kind. And it was so. God made the wild animals of the earth of every kind, and the cattle of every kind, and everything that creeps upon the earth of every kind. And God saw it was good. Then God said, let us make humankind in our image, according to our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish in the sea, and over the birds in the air, and over the cattle, and over the wild animals of the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth. So God created humankind in his image. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them. God blessed them, and God said to them, be fruitful and multiply, and fill the earth and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds in the air, and over every living thing that moves on the earth. God said, see, I have given you every plant yielding seed that is upon the face of all the earth, and every tree with seed in its fruit. You shall have them for food, and to every beast of the earth, and to every bird in the air, and to everything that creeps the earth, everything that has the breath of life, I have given you every green plant for food. And it was so. God saw everything that he had made, and indeed it was very good. And there was an evening, and there was a morning, the sixth day. Thus the oh wait, that's true.
Oh, that's okay. Go ahead and finish it up if you'd like.
Thus the heavens and earth were finished, and all their multitude. And on the seventh day, God finished the work that had done, and rested on the seventh day from all the work that he had done. So God blessed the seventh day and hallowed it, because on it God rested from all the work that he had done in creation.
Good. Okay, let's stop there. And okay, this is where I want to go with this real quick. And we're probably not going to read through chapter 2 tonight, only because this will get us a good starting place as we move forward. This is the first of the creation accounts. And what would you say? How is God depicted in this creation account?
Powerful.
Powerful. And why would you say powerful?
Because he created every single thing. He created the whole earth.
Okay. Good. Yeah, so that's what the story is about. It's about everything that is and where it all came from. So yeah, we see that God is very powerful in the way that he creates. Good. Anything else about who this God is in the midst of the creation story?
He's considerate about what's right and what's wrong, what's good and bad.
Okay. And why do you say that, Robin? Or
Because
what gives that indication to you?
Because in all of the in all of it kept saying, and God seeing that it was good.
Yeah. And it was good. Yeah, that refrain comes up over a few times, doesn't it? Like every time. Did you, oh, hey there, Dawn's little one.
Hi, Ryder.
Oh, Ryder, is that his name?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, Brahma's got to go. Say bye-bye.
Bye, Ryder. Bye-bye, Ryder.
Is it the creator also create a balance in life, like animal in the sea, animal on land, trees, things like that, to balance out the.
Yeah, you see an order or a balance. It's very intentional in the way the writer writes it in, the way he kind of fills in the gaps for us, or how he describes it for us is very clear. He wants us to see not only that it encompasses everything, but there is an order or a balance to it. And I think part of that has to do with this, the ordering the 6 days and leaving it for the Sabbath when everything was completed. But there is definitely a balance and an order that we see at play. Did you, because we see those things, and there's a repetition. Did you catch any words or any phrases that seem to have been repeated throughout the chapter.
I think somebody already said it, but that God said, he spoke all of this into existence.
Right. And so the phrase, and God said, comes up a number of times. I'm not going to go through and count them right now, but you can, if you're saying that was a repetition, that was something else. What else was repeated in this?
Either together or separated, I heard a lot.
Okay, very good. And because that is part of that whole process, isn't it? There was a lot of things that he creates, and then he maybe on a different day separates them out. So whether he creates light, and then later creates the different sources of light, you know, the sun, the moon, stars, and what have you, or animals, or the land being there and then being separated into dry land and what have you. Good. So there's a lot of creating and a lot of separating. Okay, what other things got repetition? We already said God said, God created. We already said it was good. That's a common refrain. God would see it and say it is good. Anything else that was repeated?
Yeah.
Terry?
And there was evening and there was morning.
Yeah.
He said that before each day.
Right. And so actually at the conclusion of each day, but yes, exactly. That is the kind of the transition phrase, isn't it, all throughout. This is an amazing piece of literature. I want to suggest to you that it is a great way to start an incredible long book, but it starts with some really key pieces, doesn't it? And we get to see a little bit about who God is, a little bit about how God operates, a little bit about what God has done, and hopefully we get to see a little bit about what our place is, or at least begin to discern what our place is in this created order that we find ourselves living in. But with all that repetition, it sounds almost poem-like, maybe even song-like. I could imagine ancient Hebrews back in the day when they didn't have books or Netflix to spend their evenings watching, that maybe they would sit around the campfire and they would tell this story or sing this song. Maybe it's even a song, because there's a rhythm to it, isn't it? There's a repetition. There's something that goes on here that it's more than just telling a story. It is doing it in a way that is intended to capture our imagination and give us a chance to say, hey, we are a part of this great story that's just beginning here in these opening lines of the Bible. As you read forward, I won't take time to read through it tonight. Will you read through chapter 2? You'll see there's a different feel. God doesn't seem quite as orderly. He's not doing things just by speaking them. We find that humanity has a different role in chapter 2, and almost a little different time frame is at work. And there's a lot of explanations for how the two of them fit together. But I would just point that out to you. And even for those who are much smarter than me, who can read in the original languages, that even different types of language get used between chapter 1 and chapter 2, because there's a transition that is beginning here. Chapter 1 is like a creation story that was to be kind of held just on its own. Chapter 2 begins the beginning of a story. And so it has a different flavor, a little different feel. Maybe one's more poetic and the other is more narrative. The beginning of a story where we find ourselves in. The other thing that jumps out of chapter 1 that I want you not to miss, because this will be part of that 1.6 and a little bit of the reading that Keller will bring up, is when it references who we are as humanity. Because in chapter 2, he'll talk about how God created Adam, from the dust of the earth, and he breathed into him the breath of life. And then later he would create Eve, his equal, his partner, but create him from the original Adam. And that becomes quite different than how the creation of humanity is depicted in chapter 1. because in chapter 1, it simply says that he created humanity in their image, in his image. In the image of God, he created them male and female. He creates humanity. But just hold on to that, because that idea is really critical for us as we think about not just about ourselves, but about the world around us and about people that we get to interact with. How does that little tag change maybe the way we interact with people? Recognizing that each and every one of us bear something of the image of God. What does that do for us in the way of our significance? What does that do for us in the way of our value? What does that do for us in the way of how we maybe ought to treat one another? It's an interesting place that Genesis 1 just kind of drops there in the middle and becomes a key piece for us as we move forward. What does it mean for us as we begin to interact with others who are also created in the image of God? So we'll hold on to that. We'll call that good for tonight. But I do want to just point out that the image of God will be a big piece of the Keller reading, and I think an important piece for us as we get started, especially as people hoping to be those who care for others in this messed up and broken world we live in. So do you have any questions on our Moodle before we kind of call tonight a night?
If there's any discrepancies, of course, we could reach out to you, but for the most part, are we following the syllabus?
Yes, for the most part. Well, I'll tell you what, no, let's go with the Moodle. I'll probably have it better. But in this case, not. Only, for example, in the syllabus, it talks about well, it might mention something that's actually not an assignment any longer, but on the Moodle, we've either adjusted or dropped it out. It's possible because some of the things that the syllabus does have might be things I'll be covering in our classes here, and we don't need to both have video work and writing work if we're going to be talking about it in class. Okay, so yeah, it's all still in process. So it's hard to say. I would say stick with the Moodle because it should be better. But our best example is the one that Dawn pointed out, which was that we're going to go with the syllabus on the Genesis reading. So. Okay.
So I know it worked out for us before. Are you okay with us reviewing our assignments for the week when you open them up in our class on Tuesday?
Yes. Explain that. What are you asking?
If you're comfortable with us reviewing the assignments that we have due for the week on Tuesdays.
Yes, absolutely. That way, yeah, to make sure that we're all on the same page. Okay. But yeah, you'll see it. Moodle is a good place to go for that, because if there's an assignment that say the syllabus mentions, but you don't see it on the Moodle, don't worry about it, because that's one that we've either adjusted out or worked into the instruction part of the week. So yeah, so for assignments, go with what's on the Moodle, but we will go over them each week just to make sure we all understand where we're at.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yes, Terry.
Unless I've missed it, I didn't see any quizzes. Are there any quizzes in this class?
No, there's not.
Okay.
The only thing that we'll have, and I'm pretty sure, I think we're going to have a vocabulary quiz. When I taught this class, the 400 series class, in person, we would always do quizzes. It just made sense, but quizzes are harder in the online. So I think we just worked in other assignments to try to instruct and teach a little better.
Okay. And then the signature assignment, is it just one big?
Yes, it is. And we'll talk a lot about that in the weeks ahead. But thank you for bringing it up. The signature assignment, as you look at the syllabus, you'll see that the signature assignment is it's the class. Not half, but a big portion of our grade is based on that one assignment at the end. And what that is we'll be looking at a single letter in the New Testament, a letter from the Apostle Paul to a fellow by the name of Philemon. And it's just a little one chapter letter. And but it's very interesting. We'll actually take a look at it next week and maybe get a chance to read through it. If you want to look through it ahead, it won't take you but 5 minutes to read it. But that's going to be where we're going to get our focus towards that. And we'll talk a lot about that, especially in the back half of the class, Terry.
Okay.
Okay, well then, any other questions, please feel free to hit me up via email. And otherwise I will be watching for Moodle to look at some of your initial assignments. And I hope to stay up on track with it and be ready to go to move us on through. So this week we'll look at some of the ancient stories. And again, that's why we look at Genesis, saying that something about the community that gets developed by having a shared experience, shared story. And so here we're developing a sense of community, which is a big piece about what the Bible is about, especially in the Old Testament. So, okay, well, thank you all very much. It's great to have you all here. And yeah, I will post this again. If you have any questions, we can have it. You can look at it. But again, if no one watches it, just let me know and I won't have to keep doing it. But I'll be happy to post the recordings of our sessions as well.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Well, it's nice to meet you. And Andrea, I'll look for you next time I go to elementary. There you go.
I'm
Okay.
only there like one time a month now. So.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, yeah, you got a lot of other things going on.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Okay. All right. And again, thank you guys for being so open and willing to be vulnerable with your prayer requests. I will be praying for you throughout the week. So I'll see you guys next Tuesday night.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good
Thank
night.
you.
Right.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.